All right, let's go ahead and get started. This 10 o'clock, and we're ready to roll here. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Faculty Forum. It is, as faculty, our opportunity to engage the candidates for this presidency in a series of questions that have been developed by representatives from the Faculty Association and from the Academic Governance Council faculty body. So the panel that you have before you addressing these questions are representatives from both the AGC and the Faculty Association. There are 8 questions that they're going to be asking the candidate, and in the interest of trying to complete all of those, we're going to put a 5-minute timeline on that to ensure that those questions all are given opportunity for the candidate. One of the things that is really critical to this is the evaluation form that you have hopefully in your hand. If you don't, could you give us a heads up and we'll come around and get those over to us. Kathy? She just went away. Oh, Kathy, we got a couple more people who need an evaluation form and a pen or pencil if they don't have one perhaps with. This evaluation form will be collected at the door as you leave, so if you can, as the time ensues, if you can complete that, stay after as long as you need be. But that piece will be very important to two levels, really. They'll be sent as well to the Board of Trustees, but they'll also be funneled to the body that you have up in front of you, the 4 people on this committee or panel that have been asked to collate our responses and see trends and patterns and offer then an evaluation in total from our Faculty Association and AGC faculty members. To that, then, I guess, without any further delay, we're going to, it's my pleasure, then, to introduce to you Dr. Lawrence Spraggs. He comes to us from Binghamton, New York, and he was formerly a president of Broome Community College, now retired from that position. And it's our pleasure to have him here. And we are going to then move this over to a very informal dialogue, but with purposeful questions that have been intended to see what his thoughts are on a number of areas that are of great interest to us as faculty. So I'm going to let the faculty panel introduce themselves and their role and work, and then we'll get this underway. So without any delay, here you go, Frank.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Frank Connor. I teach psychology, and I'm here representing the Faculty Association.
Hi, Steve Abid. I teach economics. I'm head of the social science department, and I'm also a member of the AGC Executive Council.
Hi, I'm Nikki Alexander. I am mathematics faculty as well as the department head of mathematics and serve as vice president of the Faculty Association.
And hi, I'm Sandy Andrews, and I teach chemistry. I'm also the department head of physical science department and also an AGC Executive Council member. And I have the first question.
Okay.
Could you describe for us 3 distinct community college students?
Well, 3 distinct community college students. From my experience, there is the classic traditional community college student who's probably a little bit older than normal, but still somebody that is wanting to pursue education, not quite sure what they're doing. So they're kind of, often I find students that come to community college are a little bit directionless, except that they know they need higher education and they know a community college is probably the right place for it. So that would be one kind of a student. Another student is, I'd call them the lost 10-year generation, the ones that didn't start college and started a career in something and finally realized that higher education is going to benefit them. So, that's another classic student that, I've seen in my career. And then there's the adult student, the one that comes back after 20 or 30 years and realizes the same thing. They need education either for a new career, a new position, or advancement in their career, whatever it may be. So that type of student. So those are kind of 3 generalized students. But if you ask me from my experience, and I don't have all the data for Grand Rapids yet, but my experience, the average community college student is like a 29-year-old single minority woman. That would be my guess at the average community college student. And from that average, you have those distinct ones, but that's the classic. And what I've been finding sort of in a trend in terms of community colleges is, because of the economic advantage of going to community college, more and more of what you might call more traditional students are showing up. And that, I think, gives us a lot of opportunity and maybe some challenges. So we're going to get the honor students and the students that have learning development issues that they have to go through. We're going to get those, and we're going to get them in the same class. And so I think the challenge that we have is how to deal with both ends of the spectrum, so to speak, and really take advantage of it. We at Broome, one of the things that we were looking for is working with the foundation, we were able to put together a presidential honor scholarship, is what we called it. And the top 10%, students that graduated in the top 10% of their class in any of the high schools in our service area were allowed to apply for a scholarship that was a free ride for 2 years at the college. And it was a very interesting concept because, there were lots of scholarships for, disadvantaged individuals, either financially or socioeconomically. And what we found is we had this, a real advantage to get those students. They brought their friends. To get the scholarship, they also had to be a tutor in our Learning Assistance Center. So we got, using that kind of an advantage to diversify our student body and then at the same time enhance teaching and learning. It was an interesting project. And, one other point I'd make is, one of the things that I've really worked hard on in all my positions is to look at international education as another way to diversify. Now, these are not the typical students, but to bring in students from other countries. Often community college students, again, trying to be, typical or, the generalized view of a student, is they really don't have an international or a global perspective. And chances are they're not going to get it unless you give them some opportunity. So one of the things that I like to see in a student body is the diversity of racial, ethnic, and international, to try to show students that there is a very clear global society that we all need to be participating in. So that's another kind of issue of students that I'd like to point out.
Are we on? Yep, good. Dr. Spraggs, this is a lack of resource questions, and the lack of resources in this case is for you because it's 2 questions and you stay have the same amount of time. First question.
5 and 5? No. 2 and a half. Okay, got it.
The first question is, would you please describe the optimal college culture?
The optimum, so I have 2.5 minutes or so.
Right.
Okay. All right. To me, the optimum culture is one of trust, collegiality, transparency, empowerment, involvement. To me, that's the kind of culture that you need. You need I was in with the administrative or the College Learning Council this morning, and I talked about my trip to the dark side as an administrator from the faculty. And, that's something that really has to go away because I think, the culture, I'm in community colleges because I'm passionate about it. I started as a faculty member. I became a director, a dean, a vice president, and then a president. But never has my feelings about what community colleges do change. It doesn't matter which side of the table or which office space I might be housed in. To me, all of those, that collegiality has to go together. The academy is something that's very special. It's very special to me. It has its uniqueness, and it's something that I really cherish, again, from my faculty roots. It's very important to me to have the involvement of faculty, staff, and students in creating the future of a college. So that's the culture that I would like to, or the one that I like to work in and the one that I try to create wherever I've been.
Well, I'll build on the ending there then. Using examples from your past, how did you promote this culture and how would you promote it here at GRCC?
I can give you a couple examples. It's a 24/7 job to do it, actually. But a couple examples that I think are very important. When I came to to Broome Community College, the faculty association, the faculty union, had been 2 years without a contract settled. So they'd worked 2 years without a contract. It wasn't really a pleasant beginning. I had no honeymoon, let's say, as the new president at that place. And, it had turned the culture in a very negative way, as you can imagine, and it's no surprise. There was just at loggerheads with the administration and the board and the faculty union, and they hired a new president. And to me, that was really clearly the thing I had to settle, because I thought the culture had become toxic as a result of that. And it's nothing that I, in my experience, ever want to have to go through again. So any place that I go from here on, I want to really work on that cultural piece first up, and hopefully can come to a place where that cultural piece is already there. Maybe it needs some fine tuning, but it's already exists. But in that environment, one of the things that I felt was very important to change that culture was we had every college has its own kind of infrastructure in terms of groups and organizations. We had what was called the college council. It was the governing body for the college. It was made up of faculty, staff, and students. And in that 2 years of no contract and, basically a lot of animosity, there was no planning either. There was no direction for the college given that environment. So I charged that group to become the planning organization for the college. Gave them the resources, the help, the organization they needed to create a strategic plan for the college. And that to me was very important to improve the culture, to understand that the new president wanted the input of everybody on campus about the direction of the college, about its future. So that to me was very important. That happened, and it really changed some minds around. There was, at the college council, it was like it's your turn to be on it, not, it was an elected body, but it was just like it's your turn. So now that college council, it's competitive to get a position on it, and the council is really in charge of the planning, and they understand that involvement, that empowerment, and, ultimately the transparency of the institution from their point of view.
I have the next question. This is a question about balance. How do you keep the Board of Trustees well informed about college operations without encouraging the trustees to micromanage? And then a second part, how do you as president remain well informed without micromanaging?
Well, I have met the board. I had dinner with the board last night. It was very pleasant. It was fun, actually. And then there were 3 board members on the initial search committee. It became very clear to me that they are really, they are very dedicated to the concept of policy governance. And I'm impressed because, I've seen that people talk about it but never do it. And, this board, from my, limited experience with them, seems very committed to policy governance. So you got that going for it. That's an important for that board. The board has that attitude, I believe. And and then it's the president's role. One of the major roles the president plays is working with the board. Clearly that's. The president is the interface between the board and the institution, and that's very important. That again, the idea of transparency, honesty, integrity, and is all about communication with the board. I would never want the board to be surprised. I would want to keep the board very well informed. In the past, I have used every technique I could figure out, weekly emails, other kinds of packets of information. Board meetings always had a session for a presentation by faculty or staff about new projects, new initiatives. Those things were always part of the board meeting. So keeping the board informed is a personal responsibility of the president, and that's really critical. If you do that and you have a board that's committed to policy governance, micromanaging would probably not occur. It'll probably be more about where they sit at the table than, those would be the micromanagement issues and not about the college. And, as I've reviewed board minutes and, read things about the college, it sounds like the board has been on the big issues, has been very much unanimous about what's going on. So, I trust that that's the case, and I would certainly foster that in the future. As far as communication, as I said, the president is that nexus between the board and the institution, and I'm not going to tell the board things that aren't happening, so I need to know what's happening. I think communication with faculty and staff is critical. You have structures in place. The College Learning Council, some of the other organizations that I've seen, and I can't remember all of the acronyms. I'm really just full up in acronyms right now. But anyway, there was a number of those acronymic organizations that I cannot remember. But I think you need to use all those things. You need to use those as a way to get communication going on all levels. And also as a personal issue, I am the kind of person, and I only could do this if you hire me and I prove it to you, but I would want to prove it to you, that I want to hear opinions, negative or positive. I want to hear them. I'm a scientist. All my degrees are in biology. It's about data to me. I mean, everything can't be distilled down to data, but it sure is the backbone of so much of what we do. So to me, I want to hear data. I want to hear opinions supported by data, and those are the kind of information that I really like. So I'm an information junkie. I really, I read 3 papers before I watch CNN in the morning. I mean, that's important to me. And the same, that kind of attitude is about the college as well, to get a free expression of opinions about issues, to get data about issues, and have conversations about them. That's very important to me.
Okay, I have the next question. Provide an example when during your past job there was a limited source of funds and 2 equally deserving recipients, the workforce development and liberal arts schools, were requesting the funds. How did you resolve the situation?
Well, there was never a moment of insufficient funds. It was always. So that's pretty much the state of affairs. I've already talked about my bias to planning. And, really, we had a strategic plan, and the budget then, the proof of the pudding, so to speak, is you take the plan and make it live. And the plan had initiatives in it. Budgeting then became tied to the plan. And there was never enough money to do everything, but the prioritization was done in an open process with a lot of input. And if you could tie your requests to initiatives in the plan, in the strategic plan, they got farther up in the funding cycle. So, that to me is really the critical process, is that you need to have a clear plan, have priorities established, have everybody understand systems thinking in terms of, how does this initiative that we're proposing in, the arts and science or the workforce development area meets the overall strategies of the college. That's the key. And, the decision or evaluation, comes from that. I hate to think resources are always the roadblock. I don't think you always have to have resources be a roadblock. There's a lot of creative ways to do things and make things happen. Our strategic plan, there was a lot of issues in there that couldn't be fit into the budget for one reason or the other. That's why I go to the foundation, and I worked very much with the foundation. The foundation of our college, not as big as yours, but, I wanted to do a leadership academy of the faculty and staff of the college. It wasn't in the budget. It wasn't, but it was in the plan. It was a priority in the plan. It wasn't fundable, in the near future. I went to the foundation and said, this is a project I think is very important for the college. Can you help? The foundation director identified a few individuals that might want to fund that project. I went to those individuals, sold the project to them, the whole concept of the Project Leadership Academy, and got it funded year after year. So, that's another way to do it. You can have, things can happen outside of the budget cycle using things like grants, like foundations, like the College Foundation, like individual donors or companies to make things happen too. So you leverage resources the best you can. You make choices on what will bring the mission of the college forward. Sometimes a decision, it's not black or white. It's like this one may not be the highest priority, but it also would bring the college forward the fastest and maybe take along the other project with it. So you got to look at it in a strategic approach as well. So it's never simple. It's a complex thing, but a lot of data, a lot of conversation, and a plan.
I have the next one, sort of an involved one. The college produces a controversial play that tests the values of the community. There is extensive negative press coverage, and you are receiving phone calls from board members and community members alike. College-wide funding is being threatened at the legislative level. You have the ultimate decision to continue or discontinue the play. What would you consider before making a decision regarding that?
Well, first of all, I would go way back to the beginning and I think it's important that those conversations about activities, a play, those conversations are held early on and not have to be react. I don't like to do reaction. Your reactivity is something you got to do sometimes, but I think strategically you need to be proactive. And so, I'm cheating a bit on the question, but the point is you need to have the values of the college clearly established. This play or event, whatever it was, or speaker, before that individual comes on campus or is here or the play is held, the conversation needs to be held, and the college as a group needs to agree this is worth the possible pushback from the community. The board should be aware of it beforehand. I would expect the board wouldn't be calling me about it because they'd already know about it, and so their calls would be, yep, they called just like we thought. That would be my hope, that we could do it that way. So it has to fit the college's mission goals. It has to have community support. We are a community-run organization, so that's something that's to be thought through beforehand. Given having done all that, I, as the president, would support it to the end. That would be my job. But I wouldn't want that to just be dropped in my lap, like all of a sudden, oh, by the way, we did this play that everybody hates, and that's hard to be, to really give it the support that it needs when it's done that way. So a lot of it's about the process. And once we've gone through that as a community, I would support it to the end.
Thank you.
We have time.
I'm just trying to keep my alkaloid level up,
GRCC has several satellite campuses. Drawing upon your philosophy of learning and experience as a leader, what resources are needed to best support student success at a satellite campus, and how would you prioritize these resources?
Well, in general, all the same resources that would be at a main campus, if you wish. But sometimes you can get creative about that. I mean, there can be some resources can be electronic, some resources can be, on a scheduled basis, for example. But I think, every student really deserves the same access, not just to the college, but access to learning development, access to financial aid, access to counseling, access to a library, access to technology. Those things should be, again, transparent. I'm overusing the word, but a satellite campus, a main campus, the students deserve the same things, and they deserve the same instruction, the same level, same quality. So, then that's an issue as you expand out, because I think you have to deal with those resources as well. You can get creative ways to do it, admittedly, but again, it's something that has to be very well planned for. It's the classic, the business that grows too fast and implodes. So it's something you got to be cautious with. But again, I know I've been reading the online Grand Rapids press as much as I can lately, and the opening of the Holland site. That community is really, that's I don't know all the details, but to see the community so involved and, willing to raise money to make that happen and to be committed to that, that's pretty important stuff. And, so that, again, is a strategic opportunity. So, you need to look at that in a very big picture format about this has a lot of advantages to the college for the following reasons, whatever they may be. And, do the math. Sometimes there's a loss leader in business where you may have to pay, it may be negative to begin with, but what is the projection down the road? It could be a very positive financial and ultimately, in general, the financial picture of the college and the support of the community, the broader community. So, same resources are needed. You can be creative in how they're delivered. But I think you need to be cautious about expansion of a college, that you don't outgrow your resources and your ability to supply what I think every student morally, ethically deserves when they come to the college.
The faculty contract has expired and negotiations
I thought you still had one.
Hypothetically.
I'm out of here.
This would never happen.
Oh, okay.
The faculty contract has expired and negotiations have stalled. What do you do?
Well, I believe that, the president needs to be cautious about where they put themselves in the negotiation process. I believe there should be a negotiations team from the administration with, the HR skills, the financial skills to represent the college properly. So, where is my position? Well, it's the man behind the curtain, so to speak. But I think, president needs to be somewhat removed from the immediacy of that. So that's, like a philosophical or operational approach that I have in negotiations. Now, the people that are doing the negotiation for the college are intimately in touch with me. They must be. I would want to know what are the issues, where are we going, how can we, I would be problem solving with that committee or with that negotiating team constantly. As I mentioned in the situation I was in, the negotiating teams had come to loggerheads. They weren't talking, so there wasn't much strategy that could be done. In extreme situations, I see as a president, I've got to step in because believe me, after watching how toxic the culture of the college became because of that contract dispute, I don't ever want to see that again wherever I am. So, sometimes you got to take life-saving measures, come in and do CPR. I would, like I did then, I would be sitting down with the union leadership, separate from the negotiating team, assuming there's some difference between those two, and to try to have, let's talk about mutual gains. How can we get this settled in a way that we all benefit? Maybe we're all not totally happy, but for the sake of the college, for the sake of the students, how can we move forward? And then send it back to the teams to, hope to get the teams with the direction to continue the negotiations and make that happen. So, it's a complex process. I think partly it has to do with setting up an atmosphere, a culture that, that's underlying negotiations, that there is trust, there is that transparency. And if they get stalled, I don't want to be stalled for long, so you do what you have to do. And that would be my attitude about it.
At this point, I'm going to ask you to reflect back to the first question about the 3 distinct community college students. And if you want, I can reiterate what you had said. But for each of those students, what do you believe they would need to be successful at GRCC, and how would you ensure that it happens?
Well, I think I've made the point about access to a community college is not just access to admission, it's access to the resources for success. So all of the students would have some similar but maybe different needs for success. Obviously, a well-honed curriculum, a qualified faculty and staff, a staff that has the resources in terms of technology, laboratories, those are critical. So your reputation rides on what you produce in terms of a quality education. So they all deserve that, and that's critically important that the students all receive a quality education. Now, what some of them may need that is distinct, financial aid. To have financial aid processes that are fair, that are understandable, to really work with students. I've seen financial aid departments that, give me your form, you don't qualify, go away. I would want to see a financial aid department that you don't qualify, but maybe you could do this. Maybe there's this scholarship. Maybe there's this other opportunity. So to get the financial resources for the student in some manner or form, and to be, kind of creative but not illegal. Hate the feds coming back, about financial aid, but to look for opportunities for that, and to try to steer the students to get the financial aid they need. The testing, the testing process, to place them properly. It's just, I find it's unethical to be putting the revolving door that some community colleges kind of do. Just get them in, admit them, and let them fail. I can't, that's unconscionable to me. So you need to place them properly, hold prerequisites. They need to be held as a standard. But then, again, always you got to look for strategic and creative ways to deal with this. A student that has to take remedial math, English, and writing probably won't get farther than that. So how can you make that different? Can they take remedial math in some kind of a learning community with something else and get them going on their degree in a way? Can you do that with any of the remedial areas? Can you make remedial palatable and something that students feel that they are going to get somewhere with it? Whatever the techniques may be. I mean, electronic, computerized, face-to-face, one-on-one tutoring, whatever is needed. If there's disability issues, you have, disability departments and with students with disabilities. You need to have the resources to do that. That's often federally, mandated and funded in some level. So those have to be very, very there and accessible to the students. I think peer tutoring is one of the key things, and however you can somehow, I think we all know our own children or whomever, they listen to their friends more than they listen to their parents. They listen to their, the peer tutor possibly more than the faculty member. So I think, we need to really take advantage of that. And like I mentioned, that the scholarship program that we created at Broome had in it a peer tutoring component, so that those students, were available to do that. It's a great learning experience for the honor student as well to be able to do that. So, those kind of issues, counseling, community college students typically, come with baggage, and we all know that. So counseling, I was at the counseling area this morning, and I was kind of asking about, what about personal counseling? How much do you have? That, to me, is really important, and I think it's going to become more important. So counseling issues in terms of personal counseling, as well as academic counseling, and ultimately career counseling. So all of those resources I think are critical to the faculty and the staff and the students for student success. All those things play into it. And then, I guess the final point, because I only have 30 seconds left, is an overall culture of a learning-centered culture that really puts student learning, student success foremost in everybody's mind. That culture gets the custodial staff, the security staff, everybody on the same plane about helping students succeed. And I think that you need to have that underlying everything we do.
Thank you.
We'd like to finish this part with, do you have any questions for us?
The contract is settled, right?
Yes.
How many years?
We have 2 more years on this contract.
Okay. All right. How many unions are there? I wasn't able to ascertain that. There's a faculty union and a couple others. Well, this is faculty forum. There's only one union, of course. All right. I'll ask the next group that.
Not the next group, that would be students.
They may know. Yeah. Well, I asked this question of the board yesterday, and that's, who are you? What are you looking for in a president from a faculty perspective? And that's a serious question because, choosing a president is a critical event in a college's life, and as our lives go, there's critical issues at stages in our lives, and the college has a life of its own. So, I may be the perfect president for Grand Rapids, or I may be the perfect president for someplace else and not Grand Rapids, yet, qualifications, I've been a president, I'm clearly qualified to be a president, but maybe not your president. So I guess the question is, what are you looking for at this stage in Grand Rapids Community College's long life, at its, 60 years or whatever it is right now?
Well, I'll give you one thing that's it's faculty in rooms down the hall from me close the door because I don't need a mic. But I guess the piece for me, and when we first met as a group and we're talking about creating these questions, I think one of the very positive things about GRCC that we don't want to lose is that we've created and continue to build on a culture of collaboration and quality improvement, individual and organizational reflective practice. We do work hard to invite all voices in the decision-making process as appropriate to the decision. Obviously, if you're creating curriculum, that's a faculty conversation. Or faculty, students, academic administrators. If you're creating, building conversations, then you broaden the group, depending on the purpose for the building. I think our faculty evaluation model is a good example of individual reflective practice. It takes a look at who are you as a faculty member? What do you believe about teaching and learning? How does that manifest in your practice? And then it becomes a collaborative conversation between you and your associate dean around what are you doing and how might you improve. So continuing that part of the culture around getting as many voices in the room as possible and recognizing as professionals and educators, and that applies to everybody who works here, given the right context, we have the ability to improve and grow on our own selves, but creating an environment where that does happen, where we do critically and emotionally reflect on who we are and what we believe and its manifestation in our work.
Okay, I certainly saw the AQUIP, the Vanguard College. I mean, those are very. I mean, this college is sort of on the trajectory for greatness in a lot of ways, and the only way that can be sustained is through that constant kind of evaluation, self-evaluation. And I totally agree. To me, in part, that goes back to that's a planning process that has accountability based into it, that has data that helps you make decisions about where to go next. I mean, generally a culture of evidence. I think you need to promote at a college in these days, and I think that supports what you say. But thank you.
I would say that from the faculty's perspective also, that we would like somebody who understands the mission of not only the community college, but Grand Rapids Community College, that we're a teaching institution, that we've prided ourselves on a faculty that is excellent, and somebody who not only understands that, but empathizes with what the faculty members are having to do in the classroom, what the students are doing, and what they're like as they come to us. So those kinds of qualities, a little bit more intangible, but I think still important.
Well, I tried to make the point about, I'm a teacher. That's really a basic, one of the cornerstones of who I am. And I've always taken the opportunity to teach and to practice the craft and really understand it from that level. At Broome, I haven't taught there, but except for the board, the community, and a few other, and the Leadership Academy. But I taught when I was in Florida. I taught in the Phi Theta Kappa Leadership Development Program. I got certified in that years ago, and have taught that, as a president, as a vice president. And to me, that's a real connection. And I have done graduate teaching as well while I taught or while I was administrator. So I understand what you're saying, and there's sort of not that a business person couldn't come in and be the president of a college, but I just think that the academy is so unique that schooling in, or at least experience and credentials, in the teaching and learning process are really critical, particularly for a community college. So I appreciate your comment.
When we asked faculty to send us the qualifications they were looking at or looking for in a president, and to put together these questions, to help us put together these questions, two themes that came through obviously was, most importantly, was a president who was student-oriented, and that often means the prioritizing of resources to best support students' teaching and learning. And the other was the ability to balance a strong liberal arts transfer program with the needs of a community for workforce development. And that often also involves limited resources, and how do you share those for two very important facets or directions for the college?
Mm-hmm. I think, community colleges came from the junior college mold or the technical college mold, and the comprehensive community college is both. And that's not schizophrenic in my mind. It is, it's clearly the mission of the comprehensive community college. It does both. And I believe there's a lot of synergy between, the two functions, and that needs to be promoted, and not the separateness, because, it's about teaching and learning. It's just at different, again, stages. The transfer function is critically important. The terminal degree, the skill function. I think it's something like 80% of the first responders in this country are trained at community colleges. That's a pretty important role that we play, but that takes somebody teaching anatomy and physiology to the first responder, and then they take. So there's a lot of crossover, and that needs to be emphasized, not the separateness, because they do fit together. And so often, when I was at Red Rocks, one of the things that one of the projects that was the most fun and most frustrating for me was we created a physician assistant program at the college, one of only 6 community colleges in the country that had a physician assistant program. And that was spanning every boundary you can imagine, because it really has turned into as we were going through the process, the AMA, which is the accrediting body, was changing. No, you've got to have a bachelor's to start the program. Well, we couldn't ask people to have a bachelor's degree to start a community college program. We just said you need to have 120 credits in all these sciences. So 99% of them had a bachelor's degree. You work around the edges on this stuff. It is clearly a technical program. But it really is beyond that. Then they started to say you have to have a master's to be that. So we just put together an online learning program with Franklin University and all the credits they got in their clinical. So that the first time that I handed out degrees to our first PA class, we had people that got their physician assistant's credential, their bachelor's degree through they had a couple courses left through an online program we had, and their master's degree. 2 of the students got all 3 the same day. That's like being creative. It's about taking workforce development that was a critical need for rural areas in Colorado to have more physician assistants, and the college could play that role. But it took the academic area, it took the vocational area, everybody had to work together in that, and then we had to get really creative to make it all work out in the end. And that program is still functioning there in Colorado.
Just a little bit. I think everything everyone said is very true, and I would just add the recognizing the central role of teaching here at the college being our core business, and the support of the faculty and staff and academic and student support services in order to continue our history of excellence, and just anything that we can see that would come from the President's office to strengthen that.
Well, I just would say that, looking at students and then looking at a learner-centered curriculum or learner-centered focus for a college, it's got to be holistic. It's not just academics. It's not, it's admissions, it's learning development, it's student development, it's all of it. And you have to have a system thinker that can look at how all those things interface, because true success comes from all of those things put together. It's no one of those separate. So you have to have that all put together to make it really work.
Okay, I think we're real close. Steve, is there...
I was just going to, we did have another question that came in, and since we have a couple of minutes, and being a good faculty member, you managed the time really well. So
Vanna White over there was giving me.
Yeah, we don't have that in class. We have the students folding up their books at about 5 minutes to. We had a faculty member ask about your experience with sustainability at your previous campus, and if you could comment on GRCC's sustainability plan.
Well, first, I'm glad you asked. Thank you for asking that question, Steve. Our strategic planning process led us to, sustainability as an effort for the college. And as a biologist, I always had, I took my high school class through the first Earth Day. I remember that vaguely, but I do remember it. So that's always been, the environmental piece has always been very important to me. But as as we as a college and me as the biologist started to study this more, there's really three legs to that stool. That's the environmental issue, which is important for, a sustainable society for all of us. And there is the environmental issue that is part of it. But the other two legs of the stool, the economic sustainability, is another important thing that community colleges can really play a major role in, I believe. And the third part of it is what I call a sustainable democracy. You need to have students understand how the political process works, how to elect the people that will sustain our society. You got to have all three. So we really jumped on it, and I was one of the original signers of the American College and University Presidents Climate Agreement. I think Dr. Oliveros was too. So our names are on some document together. I set up a sustainability committee and with several subcommittees. I participated in it because I thought it was that important. And I really ran that thing, got it off the ground, and it really was taking off. I mean, we were, the carbon footprint data we were getting, the, recycling kind of processes we were doing. We incorporated it into our master plan for all of our buildings. We really were moving. We were actually looking at every policy and procedure at the college to say how can it be more sustainable. So we worked with that, and I've seen you're beyond where we were, and which is it's one of the other things that I'm very impressed with about this college, and I would love to be part of that because I think it's a critical issue in this country. I think community colleges can play a major role modeling sustainable behavior environmentally, socially, and democratically. We were democracy's colleges. We still are. And, boy, step up to the plate right now. There's never been a more important time for colleges to do that. And I think community colleges are really set in the perfect spot to make that a reality. And to, it's like the hope of our country and maybe the world. So it's a very big issue in my mind that community colleges particularly, can play a major role in.
Dr. Spraggs, thank you so much for your time and your comments today and visiting with us as faculty, and for the panel for all the work and behind the scenes getting information from you and then funneling them into some very well-chosen questions today. Thank you for coming on some time that you are still enjoying. It's soon to end. If you could be sure that your evaluations are done. If there's anyone who walked in and didn't get one, we'll be sure to get one your way right now. Give us a hand and we'll send one over to you. Also a reminder that next Tuesday, the 19th, I believe that is, will be the next opportunity, same time, same place, to visit again with another candidate finalist. So hopefully if your schedule allows, you can join us then. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.